This plenary session was born when the King Singers reached out to Chorus America after reading our 2019 Chorus Impact Study. They saw a lot of parallels between our research on choruses and communities and their own work. Today, they're going to talk to us about why they believe that singing together is an extraordinary tool for helping people learn to talk to each other again, and why it's the choral community's duty to remind the world of the power that music has to reunite fractured societies and remind us of who we are. Please welcome the King Singers.
Hi. Thank you so much, Dashon, and hello. We're the King Singers, and quickly, so you know who we each are, I'm Johnny.
Hello, I'm Nick.
I'm Chris.
I'm Julian.
That's Eddie, he's on mute, but that's fine.
I'm Eddie.
I'm Pat.
Thank you so much to everyone at Chorus America for having us at this year's conference. As Dashon said, we started talking with Chorus America back in the fall last year when we were inspired by their Chorus Impact Study. And as it happens, it really does feel important to be talking about finding harmony right now. In case you haven't heard of the King Singers before, let me just tell you a little bit about us. Here's a brief introduction to who we are. So, the King Singers are a group of 6 guys who live in England, and we devote our lives to celebrating the amazing richness of our global choral history. Our group was born in 1968, again, thank you Dashon for telling us, when 6 choral scholars from King's College, Cambridge came together to perform a wider variety of music than they were able to sing in the chapel. There they are, those boys. The idea caught on, and the group grew to worldwide fame over the course of the decades that followed. And today, we're still committed to the ideals of those original King Singers. Now, if you should be able to see a little picture of us doing something funny. Our aims are to bring our audiences joy through singing, to open people's minds to how much good music there is by breaking outside the boxes people want to keep us in. I know that we all firmly believe that good classical music, or good music full stop, doesn't need to be traditional classical, or only vocal jazz, or only modern pop a cappella. It can be all of those things, and to enjoy them all side by side highlights the richness that exists in all kinds of music.
So what does this mean that we're still doing in 2020? Well, normally, we perform over 100 concerts every year, and we regularly release new recordings, do all kinds of educational work, including hosting our own summer schools. And in fact, we were due to be in Princeton hosting our 2nd ever US summer school this Sunday. But however, we are also advocates for the power of singing to bind us together, to teach us about each other, and to improve our well-being. At the beginning of this year, we released an album called Finding Harmony. The aim of the album was to show just how powerful a force music had been at key moments throughout history, all over the world, to bind people together and to give them a voice. There were countless episodes throughout history that we could have chosen, and our final selection ranged all the way from the polyphonic a cappella traditions of 11th century Georgia, that's the country rather than the state, and it's at the intersection of Europe and Asia, and its music incredibly has bound its people together for over a millennium, and all the way through to the Time's Up movement in 2017. Looking back to the fight against apartheid in South Africa, or for women's suffrage across the world, music played a central role in uniting vast numbers of people with a common cause.
Songs such as African American spirituals, church gospel music, jazz, blues, and hymns like If I Can Help Somebody were sung at different times for motivation, celebration, and mourning in the civil rights movement here in the United States. Our friend Stacey Gibbs, a Black composer born in Tennessee, arranged our version of that song. He grew up with campaigning parents at a time when the civil rights movement was at a fever pitch in the 1960s and early 70s. We think the song has some of the most beautiful words ever written. If I can cheer somebody with a word or a song, then my living will not be in vain. We made our album Finding Harmony because we wanted to show how valuable songs had been and could still be for individuals, for societies, for whole races, and even for the world at large. Here's another example of how a song became a powerful symbol for unity and identity at a very different time. In 2017, a devastating earthquake hit Mexico City, burying hundreds of people. Teams of volunteers spontaneously sang Cielito Lindo together as they searched for survivors. The words Canta y no llores, sing and don't cry, took on a special significance, pointing at hope rather than despair. Then in 2018, Mexicans united in song yet again, but this time in stadiums in Russia to celebrate Mexico's surprise success in the Soccer World Cup that year. The song that they sang was, of course, Cielito Lindo, and here's a little taster of our version of the song, which we recorded on Finding Harmony. That was actually the first take from our recording sessions in a very cold church, so please forgive my extremely frumpy fleece, which really shouldn't be seen in public. Like all of you right now across the world, we see global division in our own country, in your country, and in and between many of the other countries we sing in as we tour the world. We sincerely believe that there needs to be a greater effort to find harmony on planet Earth, however that's achieved. Yet we still see all kinds of people coming together through singing, in our audiences when we perform, in choirs when we give workshops, and in the messages, emails, and letters we receive from fans and friends worldwide. And this will of course be the same for you and your audiences. There is clearly a hunger globally to sing together, and that reminds us of the value of music making and of the way it can only be created when groups of people choose to come together to strive for the same musical goal.
So we're here today because we want to offer you some hope. These last few months have been more than a little bit challenging for well, basically everyone in the world, the coronavirus pandemic has put societies and communities on pause as it carries on threatening the lives of millions of people. And for us, and in this global choral community, it's damaged our livelihoods in a very big way. I'm guessing we all saw the webinar presented by NATS, ACDA and Chorus America about the immediate future of singing. It was not great to hear that singers might be the so-called super spreaders because of the nature of aerosols and the fact that singers need to stand close by each other when rehearsing and performing. This was something that none of us really wanted to hear, but we do know that research is still ongoing and that we're keeping optimistic that singing together will be in some way possible again in the not too distant future.
Now, in addition, we're in the thick of an urgent civil rights conversation centered on race, highlighting the anger and hurt felt by Black citizens of the world at the way they've been treated, not just in response to recent tragedies in Minneapolis, Glynn County, Georgia, and Louisville, that's just a few, but also to register continued unhappiness with the systemic injustices which have made Black Americans feel like their lives don't matter. And before this just sounds like a group of British guys criticizing the American justice system, the same problems exist over here in the UK too. And we're also having to think about how to respond to the cries for change from Black Britons. With these challenges as our backdrop, hope could feel like it's a little bit out of reach. Across the world, we're being told that we can't sing together, certainly in our normal ways, for the foreseeable future. As a result, musical communities feel more fractured than they have for years. But there's so much good that we can still do, both during this crisis and as soon as we're able to resume our lives. As a choral industry, we can still do good through our work, through the art we create, and as leaders within the communities, be they amateur or professional, that we bring together.
To show you that there really is hope, we're going to draw on 3 sources of information. The first is the amazing data that Chorus America has provided in their most recent Chorus Impact Study. It's really great to be able to deal with data because it's one thing to believe that singing together has a powerful impact on the people who are singing and the people that the singing touches. But it's also, of course, another to have real evidence to prove the value singing with others can have on the lives of individuals, communities, and even nations. Chorus America, as we're sure you all know, has worked incredibly hard to provide that evidence, interviewing thousands of Americans to discover the impact of group singing, and we are extremely grateful to them for that.
Our second set of sources is historical. When we were doing our research for Finding Harmony, we learned about so many occasions throughout history when singing together has a profound impact on the lives of all kinds of people at different times and in different places. We want to share those stories with you because we find them so powerful ourselves.
And the third source comes from our own experiences as king singers, whether that's the 6 of us neatly lined up here in front of you on your screens, or any of the 22 who have been part of this group before us. One of the great joys of being a king singer is the amount of globe-trotting we get to do, or rather used to do. We've chosen some of our favourite moments from our travels and moments that where we've directly experienced this power of music and singing. So these are our resources: the Chorus America study, our Finding Harmony research, and our first-hand experiences from touring. We'll use these to talk about 4 key points.
So point 1, let's start with something I hope we all think is obvious. Singing together really can be a vehicle for change. One of our favourite stories from Finding Harmony looks at a more recent battle for freedom, which ultimately succeeded in 1991. Pat, were you even born then? It took place in the Baltic states, which for anyone who may not know, include Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And we know it as the Singing Revolution. I don't actually know if any of us had been aware of it before we began researching Finding Harmony, but it's a phrase used to describe the non-violent and largely musical revolution in the late 80s. And it helped to eject the occupying Soviet communist forces in the early 90s as the USSR collapsed. I think what's particularly amazing about it, and something that has resonance today, is how singing of well-known songs in public came to symbolize the power of the people. You know, despite attempts at censorship by Soviet authorities, they could literally not be silenced when they began to sing en masse. No single event epitomizes the singing revolution quite as well as the Laulupidu National Song Festival in the capital Tallinn of July 1960. The song that closes the festival every year, Mu Isamaa on Minu Arm, My Country is My Love, was banned from being sung by the Soviet censors for being too nationalistic. It wasn't in Russian, you see. Despite this, at the end of the festival, the audience of tens of thousands began to sing the song spontaneously, and the authorities were powerless to stop them. Through singing, Estonians finally had a voice that forced the Soviet occupants to listen. And since that moment, this song has come to represent the peaceful and musical protest which regained Estonia its independence, and which has allowed Estonian music to flourish ever since. And for that, we can be truly grateful. Just after the Iron Curtain had fallen and Estonia was liberated from the Soviet Union, the Kingsingers were in Estonia, a country that we've already established is characterized by its singing tradition, and performing on Estonian television. And when the group started singing It's a New World, a song by Harold Arlen, whose first lines are, "How wonderful that I'm beholding, a never, never land unfolding," they noticed the cameramen were crying. Again, music expressed what they were feeling and represented their hope now that they lived in a free country once again. Through our own travels around the world and in the last 18 months, we've also found ourselves on the fringes of significant international affairs. Some of these experiences have shown us that even in complex geopolitics and diplomacy, there is a role for music in fostering hope, optimism, and sometimes real change. The emotions created through music are universal and common to humankind, and these can be used to great effect when that shared humanity seems to have been forgotten.
One of the most significant events in the UK in recent years was the poisoning of the former Russian intelligence officer Sergei Skripal with nerve agent on the 4th of March 2018, allegedly carried out by members of his own former agency, the GRU. In response to this incident, the British Prime Minister expelled 23 Russian officials from the UK. In retaliation, Russia expelled 23 Brits. But not only this, the Russian government ordered the closure of the British Council in Russia, an arm of the diplomatic service which is focused on cultural exchange, which was based at the consulate in St. Petersburg. Now, the British Council in St. Petersburg had been open for 26 years, and its director was a man called Michael Bird. When the British consulate finally closed its doors in June 2018, Michael Bird had been working on an initiative called the UK-Russia Year of Music, planned to take place throughout 2019. Now, despite losing all his staff and his building, Michael Bird saw that in the turbulence of the expulsions and the breakdown of government relations, actually, the UK-Russia Year of Music was more important than ever. So he worked to salvage as much of it as he was able to in the circumstances, working out of a substitute office at the British Embassy in Moscow. As it happens, we were invited to give one of the performances as part of the UK-Russia Year of Music and in St. Petersburg itself. So in May 2019, we flew there to perform at the historic Bolshoi Hall in the city's Philharmonia.
В Петербургской филармонии выступил известный британский вокальный ансамбль The King's Singers. Первое отделение музыканты посвятили своим легендарным соотечественникам, группе The Beatles. В акапельных аранжировках прозвучали хиты ливерпульской четверки. Во второй части программы были исполнены полифонические духовные композиции эпохи Возрождения.
Каждый раз программа состоит из смеси популярной музыки, современной и старинной. Кто-то идет слушать музыку эпохи Возрождения в исполнении King Singers, другие — лучшую популярную и современную музыку. В этом весь смысл.
So there you could see Eddie and Chris in very, very tight neon jumpers just after our concert in St. Petersburg. Now, the program that we had been booked to sing that evening, as you could hear from the segment, was quite light-hearted, and it was centered on folk songs and Beatles arrangements, almost all of them in English. But as the audience applauded at the end and we were backstage, we decided to make a gesture to acknowledge the tense circumstances in which the concert was arranged. So for our encore, we performed one of the most famous Russian settings of the Lord's Prayer, Otche Nash, by Nikolai Kedrov, who himself lived in St. Petersburg and had performed in that very same hall. I don't think any of us will ever forget the electric silence in the hall as we sang the first chords of this piece. It wasn't a world-changing performance, nor were we exactly on the front line of international affairs. But just the very choice of encore, we think, sent a clear message to the 1,000 Russians sitting there that night, that no matter the chaos of politics or espionage, through music, we could connect and share something on a deeper level. So here's a recording we made just last week of that setting by Kedrov. Its simplicity is beautiful at the best of times, but in that particular place, on that particular night, every chord seemed to have twice its normal resonance. Michael Bird had traveled back to St. Petersburg for our performance, and we were really pleased to be able to chat to him after the concert to hear more about the challenging time he was having in the aftermath of the Sergei Skripal affair. And he sent us an email the next day, which really helped to confirm our belief that choral music really did have its place in international diplomacy. He said, Thank you for a beautiful concert, which gave great joy to what I thought was a wonderful St. Petersburg audience. It was perfectly in the spirit of the UK-Russia Year of Music, which is that when political relations get difficult, cultural relations truly come into their own. The following month, in June 2019, your former Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, walked down a street in Pristina, the capital city of Kosovo, with President Bill Clinton to see a statue of herself unveiled in the city centre. The statue had been commissioned by the Kosovans to mark 20 years since she orchestrated the NATO intervention which ousted the Serbian forces from Kosovo and eventually granted Kosovo the fragile independence that it enjoys to this very day. Here's a picture of Madeleine with Bill kindly holding her hand for her. Now, 4 months after that statue was unveiled, and just 500 meters down the road from there, we walked on stage in the Mother Teresa Cathedral, Pristina, to give the world premiere of some of the works we had commissioned for our Finding Harmony tour. Kosovo wasn't a glamorous touring destination by most standards, and the language barrier sometimes posed its difficulties. But it really felt like a deeply meaningful location in which to give the first performances of these pieces. During our stay there, we were fortunate to meet many singers from the country's only professional vocal group, the Kosovo Philharmonic Choir. Etched into the memory of several of these singers were horrific experiences in which family members and friends had been tortured, executed, or evicted from their homes by Serbian forces in the late 90s and early 2000s. For many of them, singing together in the Philharmonic Choir represents solidarity and community spirit, both within the choir and for their audiences. And this has been a key part of rebuilding their lives and their national identity in the years since the Albright coordinated NATO intervention. To fast forward again 3 weeks, on to the 3rd of November, we flew into Washington, DC to perform at a church in Georgetown. Now, on the front row of the audience that night was the real-life Madeleine Albright. By all accounts, Madeleine is the loudest hymn singer in the church's entire congregation and is an avid supporter of music all over the town. So we finished the concert with selections from our Finding Harmony repertoire. And after the concert, Madeleine came backstage to meet us. We exchanged stories about our recent trips to Kosovo, and she told us that her proudest achievement in life was what she managed to accomplish in Kosovo. But she also confessed that she found the statue in Pristina somewhat unflattering. Now, Secretary Albright also told us that during some secret preparations for the intervention back in 1997, she had had a fierce row with the Russian Foreign Minister, Yevgeny Primakov. Later that same night, at a party arranged by the American delegation, Albright and Primakov sang karaoke together after what I imagine must have been a few glasses of bourbon. And she maintains that their shared enjoyment of music, maybe bourbon too, helped to build an understanding which progressed these negotiations. In fact, the ideas behind Finding Harmony struck such a chord for Madeleine that she has since become a major donor to our USA-based charity, the Kingsingers Global Foundation.
It's clear from these stories that singing, and in particular singing with others, can be a way to achieve things we otherwise thought weren't possible. Singing can give us hope. That's why we love this statistic from the Chorus Impact Study. 72% of people in choirs believe that being in a choir helps them be more optimistic about life. They know there's reason to be hopeful when they're in a choir.
Right, well, now on to the second of our 4 points, which is that singing together can make us feel less isolated. Chorus America found that only 10% of people in choirs said that they often felt left out socially, compared with 20% of the general non-singing public. Right now, most of us know firsthand the struggles of isolation. Locked up in our homes for months, binge-watching TV series that we're only mildly interested in, and of course, not being able to see or hug the people that we love and care about. But music is helping us through this, and just as it has done many times before in the UK. Let's briefly travel back in time to 16th century England. This was a time of massive religious upheaval, as our previously Catholic country was reformed into a Protestant one. As part of the wave of religious reformation that swept across Europe, Henry VIII created the Church of England in 1534. He solidly turned his back on the ornate styles of Rome and the Vatican, whose motets were gorgeous and complex and polyphonic and, of course, in Latin. The Church of England enforced much more simple services. Preaching and music had to be in English only, and the musical content had to be clear, homophonic, and accessible. Well, as with any large-scale enforced change, there were, of course, rebels. In this case, the Rebel Alliance just happened to include one of England's finest ever composers, William Byrd. Whilst writing bespoke Protestant ditties for Henry's daughter, Queen Elizabeth I, he secretly kept on composing Catholic music for all the clandestine masses being held underground, sometimes literally underground. When writing these motets, Byrd would often pick texts from the Bible which could be interpreted as thinly veiled references to the state of the Catholic Church at the time. One of the best examples of this is the beautiful Ne Irascaris Domine, which finishes with the words, "Zion is a desolation, Jerusalem has been laid to waste." So despite the fact that people were arrested for simply owning copies of Byrd's music, his works and works of other covert composers like him helped keep this brutally marginalized Catholic community feel connected during this lonely and dark time for religion in Europe. So while we've been in lockdown, we've had to work out ways to make music remotely. Doing this has definitely given us six some sense of connection, despite the fact that Pat is hundreds of miles away up in Scotland. Our own humble offerings to the huge collection of amazing virtual choir videos online were a lot of fun to put together, but on one occasion, we were able to do something really quite special. We went much further than just bringing our six voices together when we collaborated with the Stay at Home Choir. We performed Billy Joel's classic And So It Goes, arranged for us by our former tenor Bob Chilcott. Now this choir is made up of 732 people from 52 different countries. And singing in this project allowed all of them to feel like they were in some way part of something, and that for a while they belonged to this great global choir. Here's a little clip from that video.
In every heart there is a room, a sanctuary safe and strong, to hear the womb. So I will share this room with you, and you can have this heart to break.
I'm pretty sure I've got something in my eye there. What an amazing video. Don't envy the technician who put together all of those videos. Feel free to watch the rest of that online if you haven't seen it. It's up on YouTube and Facebook. Here's a couple of comments that I found whilst scrolling through on YouTube about that video. Laura Bissell said, "Wonderfully brilliant. Thank you, Stay at Home Choir, for creating this amazing outreach and for giving us the opportunity to embrace the world through the bonds of music in isolation." Lisa said, "I performed with the King Singers while wearing sweatpants." Her words, not mine. And finally, Stephen Jablonski said, this is a nice quote here, "Music is perhaps the most effective antidote to all the craziness that is afflicting America in 2020. We feel all the pain, and then we listen to the music like this, and the joy is overwhelming." So there you go. Singing together, however it takes place, makes us feel in some way less isolated.
Well, on to point number 3 of 4 now, and one that's extremely topical. Singing together can encourage diversity, inclusion, and tolerance. The Chorus America statistic is this: 79% of people in choirs believe that the more diverse an organisation is, the more successful it's likely to be. That's versus only 56% of the general population. There are so many examples of this from our travels as King Singers, where we've known this to be the case. And one of the most memorable took place in Johannesburg, South Africa, 3 years ago in February 2017. It was our first tour to South Africa in 20 years, and we were really lucky to work with all kinds of singers as we toured across the country, from elementary school choirs outside Pretoria to college groups in Stellenbosch and Johannesburg, all of which were a mixture of black and white singers. Our concert at the Linda Auditorium in Johannesburg included a joint performance of This Marriage by Eric Whittaker with the University of Johannesburg, or UJ Choir, with a rehearsal the day before. What we hadn't realised though, until we arrived at the rehearsal, was the racial makeup of the UJ Choir. We, the King Singers, were predominantly white, and bar 3 or so students, the UJ Choir was black. To perform a piece like This Marriage with a choir in concert, the 6 of us would usually stand slightly apart from the choir we're performing with. On this occasion though, we stood right in the middle of their choir. In a country where race relations have perhaps been the main social issue for centuries, to stand side by side with these students and create a combined choir that was so diverse in origin and appearance was truly breathtaking. Here's the video from that performance.
May
can't remember there being a single dry eye in the hall that day, either on stage or in the audience. The impact of the music was heightened by the diversity of people performing it.
Now, in May that same year, there was a terrorist bombing in Manchester, UK. Ariana Grande was performing at the Manchester Arena to a sold-out crowd. Just as the performance was ending, a bomb went off in the lobby of the arena, killing 23 attendees, many of whom were children, and wounding more than 800. 2 weeks later, Ariana, her manager Scooter Braun, and several others organized a benefit concert in the city called One Love Manchester, to show solidarity with the people of Manchester and to help them find their strength by showing up together for each other in the name of music. You'll be able to see in a second a picture of all of those people on stage. Now, there were so many world famous performers. Oh, is everyone still here? Yes? Good, sorry. I thought they'd frozen. There were so many world famous performers who gave their time for free to perform at the event, including Miley Cyrus, Pharrell Williams, Katy Perry, Justin Bieber, and Coldplay, and who all joined together to perform Ariana's song One Last Time at the end of the show. This collection of musicians was seriously diverse. You know, some were as dour as Liam Gallagher from Oasis, and others were as zippy as the Black Eyed Peas. And this heightened the impact of their shared message of support for Manchester, so much so that the British Red Cross reported it received more than £10 million in donations in the 12 hours following the concert. And this moved us so much that we decided to record the song ourselves on our Finding Harmony album. It's clear that the positive impact of these organizations, these groups of singers, whether that was the UJ Choir and us or whether One Love Manchester, was significantly increased by the diversity of the people who were part of them. The more we embrace this, all of us, the more we can be advocates for the value of diversity in other spheres of our lives. And I'm sure that that's something we all want.
Finally, point 4. Singing can have a positive impact on our physical well-being. This is definitely one of the best statistics. The question was this: which of these medical conditions have either improved since you joined a choir or seem to improve the more you sing? 45% of the singers over 65 said that voice disorders had improved. 35% said that chronic lung diseases like chronic bronchitis or emphysema had improved. And 31% said that their asthma was less severe. I'm sure you'll all agree that this is an incredible set of data. We were personally reminded of this healing power of music during lockdown after we posted a video of us singing If Ye Love Me by Thomas Tallis. As part of the video, we had posted a moving score above our heads so that viewers could follow or sing along with the music. And here's a short clip from that video. That's certainly one of my favourite pieces of music. We received this message on Facebook shortly after the video was published. Thank you so much for sharing the sheet music. About 2 decades ago, I was in an excellent vocal group. Unfortunately, I had to leave because health problems required me to undergo repeated surgery. The intubation caused damage and scarring to my vocal folds, and I have barely sung since. But I must have performed this with one of my groups before. The vocal and physical memory for music I perform lasts beyond my conscious recall, and when I heard this piece, I was able to sing along, very gently at first, but with a small level of increasing confidence, because my voice remembered what I consciously do not. I've been rehearsing my voice now gently since you posted this, and I think I might in a few months' time, and with care for the way I exercise my vocal folds, be able once again to audition for an a cappella group near me. If you had not posted this gorgeous piece with the music, I don't know that those neurons would ever have fired the same way. You may have helped me save my voice after 2 decades. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So those are our 4 points. And what do all these facts tell us? First of all, they tell us quite straightforwardly that singing in choirs binds people together in a really positive way. They are 1, optimistic, 2, they feel more included, and 3, they more readily see the value and beauty in bringing a diverse mix of people together. Now, these sound like exactly the kinds of people we need in our world today. Then these facts also tell us that singing can benefit our health, point 4, particularly among a group of people in our society that's currently deemed to be at high risk. Remember, those statistics were for over 65 surveyed, and we're in the middle of a viral pandemic. Singers, it seems, can become stronger through singing, and they report a higher quality of life. I think it's safe to assume that this is something we all want. Now, why are we reminding you of all these things? We're telling you these things because we, as choral professionals like you, well, we are choral professionals like you, and we have a mandate for you. When you can, when it's safe, and only when it's safe, you each have a very important role to play, to continue bringing people together, encouraging this diversity and inclusion, and making them physically stronger, both as individuals and as a collective through singing. We're not saying this is an easy journey. We're not sure exactly what the near term or the long-term future holds for us. And we see so many arts institutions struggling around us all the time at the moment. But it is a journey we know we have to make together, and we have confidence in you to make it with us. If you're still in doubt about this, there are so many more examples from history, so much more data, so many more stories that we could tell you, all in the name of finding harmony, that show the power of singing and what it's had over time. If you're interested to find out some more, then please do ask us questions on another occasion, or if we have time, maybe for one question, because I realize we've almost reached the end of our limit in the Q&A session very shortly.
Now, you may say it's all well and good, but that it's not much use to us now. Because of the pandemic, many of us simply can't bring people together to sing in person. There's a creepy shot of New York totally silent. This makes rehearsals and performances in the traditional sense impossible. But we wanted to give you a couple of examples of how even in our little King Singers bubble, and only using basic technology, we're finding that we're still able to have a positive impact on the world around us. A small example is this one. It's another one of our isolated recordings. This one is of the beautiful song, Down to the River to Pray. Like with If You Love Me, we wanted to provide the score and the videos of us singing at the same time, so that viewers could follow along with the music while we sang. Here's a short clip from that video, and why not test your sight reading as it plays and have a sing? That's why the music's there.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, mothers, let's go down, come on down, don't you want to go down? Come on, mothers, let's go down, down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray,
If your video was as pixelated as mine, then good luck with the sight reading on that particular one. Now, there's some very, very moving comments on all of these videos that we've made. And here's a couple from that one, from people all around the world. One guy said, I posted this on my Facebook page and offered it as an immediate antidote to the toxic news and commentaries filling the world right now. The response to this little gem has been far better than I'd ever imagined it would. How timely. Another person said, nice job, fellas. I'm really enjoying these during these quarantine times. They're giving me something to look forward to, so keep them coming. These videos are by no means groundbreaking. We've all seen 100 per day for the last 3 months. But they are having a positive impact on people's lives. And that's truly something that we should celebrate.
So before we invite you to ask any questions, although I'm not sure if we're going to have any time, I'm sorry, but please send them anyway and we'll try and respond to you somehow. We just wanted to return to this notion of hope one last time. What you do is so important. Thank you. As you continue to take part in this year's conference, as you listen to others speak and speak with other delegates, please remember just how important your work is and how much of a difference it makes to the lives of individuals and communities. Allow that to remind you just how valuable the work you do is, and that it genuinely can help us make the world a happier, healthier, and more inclusive place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. That unbelievable, really, really beautiful work, gentlemen. Thank you so much. And I just want to say you've certainly inspired us to keep finding harmony at the core of our work. For the rest of us, after we dry our eyes and take lots of deep breaths after that wonderful presentation, we have another full day of programming today, starting with the sponsor and exhibitor showcase that immediately follows this event. And of course, we hope you'll join us for tonight's virtual gala starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. We have an amazing lineup of performances and special guests planned to help us celebrate, not to mention some pretty stellar auction items. Please be sure to take a look. Thanks again, everyone. We are adjourned.
When time is running out for everyone, like the breath I knew would come, I reach for a new day. Hope is my philosophy, just needs days in which to